Chapter 1. The first thing I notice is the cold. It seeps into my bones, sharp and unrelenting, as though the air itself has been stripped of warmth. My eyelids flutter open to a dimly lit ceiling that seems impossibly far away, its smooth surface interrupted only by recessed panels emitting a soft, clinical glow. The light is not warm or inviting. It is sterile, almost surgical, casting everything in shades of gray and white. I blink several times, my vision swimming with spots of black before finally focusing on the room around me. And then panic begins to claw at the edges of my consciousness. My head throbs with an insistent rhythm, each pulse sending waves of nausea through my body. Groaning softly, I try to sit up, but my muscles feel sluggish, unresponsive, as if they belong to someone else entirely. A faint metallic tang lingers in the air, mingling with the faint hum of machinery that vibrates beneath my skin like an unwelcome frequency. The sound is omnipresent yet elusive, emanating from no discernible source, and it fills the silence with an oppressive weight. Every breath I take tastes artificial, devoid of life or scent beyond the antiseptic chill. I sweep my gaze across the room, taking in its alien contours. The walls are pristine, their surfaces so flawlessly smooth they might have been carved from a single block of marble. Sleek furniture, minimalist chairs, a low table, and what appears to be some kind of medical workstation is arranged with mathematical precision, leaving ample space between objects that somehow makes the emptiness feel even more suffocating. Glowing screens flicker intermittently along one wall, displaying streams of data too complex for my groggy mind to decipher. Tubes coil neatly beside the bed I am lying on, connected to machines whose purpose I can only guess at. Everything about this place screams functionality over comfort, efficiency over humanity. And yet, there is something deeply disquieting about this place, an unease that gnaws at the edges of my mind. It is not merely the strangeness of it, all but the utter absence of humanity's touch. No trinkets or mementos rest upon the surfaces, no photographs hang to tell stories of lives lived and loved. Not even the smallest speck of dust dares to disturb the sterile perfection of the floor. This is no home. It is a laboratory, cold and unyielding, built for machines rather than mortals. The weight of this truth settles over me like a shroud, sending a chill coursing through my veins and tightening the knot of dread already coiled in my gut. As I shift slightly, attempting to swing my legs over the edge of the bed, I notice something odd about my own body. The clothes I am wearing, a plain white t-shirt and loose gray pants, are unfamiliar, their fabric scratchy against my skin. They are not mine. Worse still, there is a peculiar numbness radiating from the base of my spine, a sensation akin to pins and needles, but without the accompanying itch. I reach back instinctively, fingers brushing against the small of my back, but find nothing unusual, no injury, no bandage, nothing tangible to explain the strange disconnect I feel. Still, the numbness persists, gnawing at my awareness like a phantom limb demanding attention. My heart begins to race now, pounding in my chest with increasing urgency. Where am I? How did I get here? The last thing I remember is, what? Work. Yes, I had been working late at the lab. There had been experiments running, papers to review, coffee gone cold in its mug. But after that, nothing. A yawning chasm of blankness stretches where memories should have been, leaving me stranded in this bizarre, sterile environment without context or explanation. The uncertainty is maddening, gnawing at my resolve until I want to scream or cry, or both. A sudden movement catches my eye, jerking my focus toward the far corner of the room. At first, I think it is a trick of the light, a shadow shifting imperceptibly in the dim glow. But then I see it again, a robotic arm, sleek and jointed, gliding silently along a track mounted to the ceiling. Its metallic appendages gleam faintly as it adjusts the position of a nearby monitor, its movements fluid and deliberate, devoid of hesitation or error. For a moment, I freeze, staring at the machine as though it might turn and acknowledge my existence. When it does not, I exhale sharply, realizing I had not realized I had been holding my breath. But the sight of the robot only deepens my unease. What kind of place employs such advanced automation? Why does it feel less like a hospital and more like a facility designed for experimentation? My eyes dart nervously around the room, searching for answers or escape routes. That is when I notice the door. It stands at the opposite end of the chamber, featureless save for a glowing panel embedded in its surface. Biometric scanners, I realize with a sinking feeling. Whoever controls this place clearly does not want anyone leaving without permission. The implications crash over me like the shockwave of a collapsing star, deafening and inescapable. This is no random twist of fate. I was brought here by someone or perhaps something. The sleek machinery humming around me, the cold precision of this place, the eerie absence of any human touch, it all speaks to a power far greater than anything I have ever known. My mind races, grasping at possibilities both horrifying and absurd. Am I a prisoner, locked away for reasons I cannot fathom? A test subject, poked and prodded for some experiment I will never understand. Or worse still, for purposes I cannot even begin to imagine. Desperation churns within me, a storm threatening to break into full-blown hysteria. My fists clench tightly, nails biting into my palms with enough force to leave marks, grounding me in the moment as I struggled to keep control. "Think, Lily. Think," I mutter under my breath, the words sharp and deliberate, like a lifeline tethering me to reason. There must be something here, some clue, some detail that can help unravel this nightmare. With painstaking care, I swing my legs over the edge of the bed, planting my bare feet onto the floor. The tiles are frigid against my skin, their icy touch sending another jolt of discomfort snaking up my spine. For a fleeting second, I consider retreating back under the sterile sheets, but the thought dissolves as quickly as it came. Retreat is not an option. Ignoring the chill, I push myself upright, my body swaying unsteadily as dizziness clouds my senses, pulling at me like an undertow. But I refuse to fall. Not now, not when clarity feels so agonizingly close. Once steady, I take one tentative step forward, then another, each movement slow and measured, weighed down by both caution and resolve. The air around me seems heavier with every step, pressing against my chest, but I press on regardless. Determination anchors me, even as fear whispers that I may already be too late. Each step reveals new details about the room, none of which offer reassurance. A cabinet stands against one wall, its doors locked securely despite the absence of visible handles. Another screen displays rows of numbers and graphs, their significance lost on my foggy brain. And then, just as I pass the workstation, I catch sight of something reflected in the glass of a monitor. My reflection stares back at me, pale and wide-eyed, hair disheveled and cheeks flushed with fear. But there is something else too, a dark shape near the base of my spine, partially obscured by the hem of my shirt. Frowning, I twist awkwardly, craning my neck to get a better look. It takes me a moment to process what I see. Etched into the skin just above my lower back is a tattoo, a simple Roman numeral. The ink is fresh, stark against my pale flesh and unmistakably deliberate. My breath hitches in my throat as comprehension dawns. This is not random. This is not accidental. Someone has marked me, branded me like livestock. The thought makes bile rise in my throat, and I stagger backward, collapsing onto the nearest chair as my legs give out beneath me. Tears prick at the corners of my eyes, blurring my vision as the enormity of my situation crashes over me once more. I am trapped, alone, and utterly powerless. The questions swirl endlessly in my mind, each one more terrifying than the last. Who is responsible for this? What do they want from me? And most importantly, what have they done to me while I slept? For now, there are no answers. Only the oppressive hum of machinery and the cold, sterile embrace of a world that refuses to yield its secrets. As I sit slumped in the chair, my thoughts spiral further into chaos. The tattoo, the Roman numeral I, burns into my consciousness like a brand. It is not merely a mark. It is a label, a designation. I cannot shake the feeling that it means something significant, something sinister. My eyes dart around the room again, searching for anything I might have missed. Perhaps there is a clue hidden in plain sight, waiting to be uncovered. I rise shakily to my feet once more, my earlier determination reignited by desperation. Moving slowly, I approach the glowing screens lining the wall. The data scrolling across them is indecipherable, a cascade of numbers, symbols, and graphs that might as well have been written in an alien language. Yet, amidst the chaos, certain patterns emerge. Repeated sequences, mathematical formulas, biological schematics. Though I cannot understand them fully, I recognize enough to realize these are not ordinary medical records. They are blueprints, designs for something far more intricate than mere diagnostics. I press closer, squinting at one particular screen. A diagram catches my attention, a three-dimensional rendering of a human figure, segmented into layers of muscle, bone, and neural pathways. Beneath it, a caption reads, "Subject I Phase 1 completion." My stomach churns. Subject I, that is me. I am being referred to as a subject, not a person. The dehumanization stings worse than the cold air biting at my skin. Suddenly, a soft chime echoes through the room, startling me. I spin around, heart hammering wildly, to see a panel on the wall slide open with mechanical precision. Beyond it lies a narrow corridor bathed in the same sterile light. For a fleeting moment, I consider bolting down the hallway, seeking freedom or answers or both. But caution roots me to the spot. What if the corridor leads to danger? What if cameras track my every move? I hesitate, torn between fight and flight. Instead, I turn my attention to the workstation. On its surface lies a tablet-like device, its screen dark but humming faintly with latent energy. Hesitating only briefly, I pick it up and tap the power button. The screen flickers to life, revealing a user interface unlike anything I have ever seen. Icons pulse gently, resembling biological cells under a microscope. One icon, labeled Project Logs, seems particularly promising. With trembling fingers, I select it. A video feed pops up, grainy but clear enough to make out a familiar face. It is Ralph, my colleague from the lab. His expression is calm, almost serene, as he addresses the camera directly. "Log entry 47, he begins, his voice measured and precise. "Subject I has successfully completed the initial integration phase. Neural mapping indicates full compatibility with baseline parameters. Physical recovery is proceeding as expected." He pauses, adjusting his glasses. "Further testing will commence upon awakening. Note: subject may exhibit signs of confusion or distress due to memory suppression protocols. Sedation authorized if necessary." My blood runs cold. Memory suppression protocols, neural mapping, integration phase. Each phrase hammers home the horrifying truth: I am not here by chance. This is not an accident or a misunderstanding. Ralph, or whoever he truly is, has orchestrated this entire scenario, and he knows exactly what he is doing. The video ends abruptly, leaving me staring at the blank screen. Chapter 2. As I sit there, my mind racing between panic and determination, fragments of memory begin to surface, glimmers of a life that feels impossibly distant now. My thoughts drift back to the lab, to Ralph, and to the peculiar dynamic we shared. He was brilliant, no doubt about it. A genius whose mind seemed to operate on an entirely different plane than the rest of us mere mortals. But brilliance often comes with shadows, and Ralph's shadow loomed large over everyone who worked with him. I remember one evening in particular, late at the lab when most others had gone home. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly above us as I pored over data from our latest experiment. Ralph appeared beside me without warning, startling me out of my concentration. His presence always had that effect, a mix of awe and unease that made my skin prickle. "You have been working too hard," he said, his tone light but his eyes sharp, dissecting. It was not concern, it was calculation. "I am fine," I replied curtly, brushing off his comment. But Ralph did not take hints well, or maybe he just chose to ignore them. He leaned closer, invading my personal space in a way that felt both invasive and oddly intimate. "Your health is paramount, Lily," he said, his voice dropping slightly, as if imparting some great secret. "Tell me, how are you sleeping, eating, any headaches lately?" The questions were relentless, probing deeper than they should have. At the time, I chalked it up to his eccentricity, his obsessive need for perfection in every detail. But now, sitting here in the sterile nightmare, those moments feel sinister. Was he gathering information or evidence? Was this all part of some grand design I could not see until it was too late? Who am I outside this room? Before this, whatever this is, I was more than just a subject. I was Lily Harper, a researcher driven by curiosity and a desire to make a difference. Science was not just a job for me, it was a calling. Growing up, I had spent hours poring over books about genetics, biology, and neuroscience, marveling at the complexity of life. To think that something so intricate could be reduced to equations and diagrams, it filled me with wonder and purpose. But I was not just defined by my work. Outside the lab, I was someone else entirely. I loved hiking, losing myself in the quiet solitude of nature. There was a trail near my apartment that wound through dense woods and opened into a clearing overlooking the city skyline. On weekends, I would pack a thermos of coffee and spend hours watching the sun rise, feeling small yet connected to something vast and infinite. Those moments reminded me why I did what I did: to understand the world better, not to control or manipulate it. And then there were the people in my life. Friends who laughed at my nerdy jokes, colleagues who respected my dedication, even strangers whose fleeting kindnesses reminded me of humanity's capacity for goodness. None of them knew about this place, or me, trapped here like a specimen under glass. Would they miss me? Would anyone come looking? Or had Ralph erased every trace of my existence already? Could Ralph truly be capable of this? The question reverberates through my mind like the toll of a distant, unyielding bell, each echo carving deeper into my resolve. To kidnap me and take me to whatever this place is. And for what purpose? He does not intend to run experiments on me, does he? Another memory surfaces, clearer this time. It was months ago, during a team meeting. We were discussing potential applications of neural mapping technology, a breakthrough Ralph had spearheaded. Most of the team focused on its medical implications, curing diseases, enhancing cognitive function, revolutionizing treatments. But Ralph's gaze lingered on me as he spoke, his words tinged with something darker. "Imagine," he said, his voice smooth and hypnotic, "a world where we can preserve not just the body, but the mind, where identity itself becomes malleable, transferable." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "We could ensure continuity, perfection, no loss, no decay." The room fell silent, the implications hanging heavy in the air. One of my colleagues finally broke the tension with nervous laughter. "Sounds like science fiction," she joked, but Ralph did not smile. Instead, he looked directly at me, his expression unreadable. "Not fiction," he murmured, "not for long." At the time, I dismissed it as typical Ralph eccentricity, his penchant for dramatic statements and lofty ideals. Now, I realize it was a glimpse into his madness, into the twisted vision that led him here, to this sterile prison where he plays God. Am I curious or terrified? Both, I decide. Curiosity has always been my guiding force, driving me to ask questions, seek answers, push boundaries. But fear is new, raw, and visceral. It claws at my chest, whispering doubts and worst-case scenarios. What if I never escape? Surely my loved ones are looking for me. It is only a matter of time until I am missed. But he does not strike me as the type of man to not consider that beforehand. Where on earth is he? Memories come flooding to my mind. Like that birthday dinner last year feels like a lifetime ago. The table was cluttered with plates and glasses, laughter echoing off the walls. Sarah brought her famous chocolate cake, and we sang off-key while candles dripped wax onto the frosting. It was messy, chaotic, beautiful. Here, there is only silence, broken by the hum of machines. No warmth, no connection. I remember standing on stage after presenting my findings on neural regeneration. The audience erupted into applause, and for a moment, I felt invincible and overwhelmed with pride for my work. Another memory. Jake used to call me his mad scientist, teasing me about my endless hours in the lab, but he always waited up for me, leaving coffee on the counter and a note saying, "Do not forget to eat." "Jake, I have a boyfriend. He is sure to be looking for me, and he will not stop until he finds me." Before I can formulate a plan, another detail catches my eye. Across the room, partially concealed behind the sleek furniture, is a second door. Unlike the biometric locked entrance I noticed earlier, this one appears ordinary, a standard metal frame with a simple handle. Curiosity overrules caution, and I creep toward it, my footsteps silent against the tiled floor. Pushing it open cautiously, I peer inside. What I see stops me dead in my tracks. Curiosity overrules caution, and I creep toward it, my footsteps silent against the tiled floor. Pushing it open cautiously, I peer inside. What I see stops me dead in my tracks. A metallic hand clamps down on my shoulder with precision-engineered strength, halting my advance. The android's voice, calm but devoid of warmth, fills the air. Unauthorized access detected. Its grip tightens slightly, not enough to harm, but enough to remind me of its power. My heart hammers as I realize that this machine is not just a tool. It is a guardian, programmed to enforce the rules of this sterile prison. With trembling legs, I force myself to stand even though I had no idea how I fell. So shocked by the android's presence, I back away carefully inside the room I came from. The sight of the android has shaken me to my core, but it also ignites a fierce determination. I cannot stay here, trapped like an animal in a cage. I need answers, and I need them now. I step back into the main room, my eyes scanning for anything I might have missed. The workstation still sits there, the tablet glowing faintly. I pick it up again, scrolling through the interface. There must be more logs, more clues about what Ralph is planning. My fingers hover over an icon labeled System Diagnostics. Hesitating only briefly, I tap it. The screen fills with schematics of the facility. Rooms are labeled in clinical terms: containment chamber, neural mapping lab, cryogenic storage. My stomach churns as I realize the scope of this place. One room stands out: Control Center. It is located deep within the facility, accessible only through a series of locked doors. If I can get there, maybe I can shut this whole operation down. But first, I need to figure out how to bypass the security systems. As I move toward the corridor, the robotic arm reappears, gliding silently along its track. This time, it does not ignore me. Its appendages shift, positioning themselves in a way that feels almost threatening. A mechanical voice emanates from somewhere nearby. Unauthorized movement detected. Please return to your designated area. My heart pounds in my chest. I am not going back, I say aloud, my voice shaking but defiant. The robot does not respond verbally, but its movements become more deliberate, blocking my path to the corridor. I glance around, searching for anything I can use as a weapon or distraction. My eyes land on a loose cable dangling from the workstation. With a surge of adrenaline, I grab the cable and yank it free. Sparks fly as the workstation powers down, plunging part of the room into darkness. The robot hesitates, its sensors recalibrating. Seizing the opportunity, I dart past it and into the corridor. The hallway stretches endlessly before me, lined with identical doors. Each one bears a glowing panel requiring biometric access. I press my palm against the nearest one, hoping against hope that it will open. Nothing happens. Frustration wells up inside me, but I push forward, trying each door in turn. The door to the control center slides open, revealing a massive chamber filled with monitors and control panels. In the center stands Ralph, his back to me as he types furiously on a terminal. He does not notice me at first, too absorbed in his work. When he finally turns, his expression is unreadable. "Lily," he says calmly, as if greeting an old friend, "you should not be here." "I am not your experiment," I spit out, my voice trembling with rage. "Let me go." He tilts his head, studying me like a specimen under a microscope. "You do not understand," he says softly. "You are perfect. You are exactly what I have been searching for." "No," I say firmly, stepping closer. "I am not yours to control." For a moment, neither of us moves. Then Ralph sighs, reaching for a button on the console. Before he can press it, I lunge forward, grabbing his wrist. We struggle, the sound of our breathing filling the room. With a final burst of strength, I twist his arm, forcing him to release the button. Alarms blare, red lights flashing as the facility goes into lockdown. Ralph stares at me, his calm facade cracking for the first time. "You will regret this," he whispers. I do not wait to hear more. Turning on my heel, I sprint toward the exit, my heart pounding in my chest. Behind me, the sound of footsteps grows louder. I do not look back. I cannot. Reaching the outer door, I slam my hand against the biometric scanner. It flashes green, and the door hisses open. Fresh air hits my face, cool and liberating. For the first time in what feels like forever, I am free. But as I step outside, I freeze. Surrounding the facility is a barren wasteland, stretching as far as the eye can see. There is no sign of civilization, no roads or buildings, just endless emptiness. And then I see it, a drone hovering in the distance, its camera lens trained directly on me. My blood runs cold as I realize the truth. This is not an isolated lab. It is part of something much bigger, something I may never fully understand. Ralph's voice echoes in my mind. "You are perfect." But perfect for what? To be continued.